Imagine standing in a grocery aisle doing the math in your head. Eggs, milk, bread, maybe a few vegetables, and you're already pushing $60. You're not splurging, you're surviving. Now imagine, in that same moment, a billionaire's net worth just increased by more than your entire year's salary. Not because they created anything new, not because they worked harder, but because the system is wired to multiply their wealth while most people fall further behind. Welcome to 2025. This year, people are skipping meals, rationing gas, and clipping digital coupons, while the billionaire class is blowing past 12-figure fortunes. That's $100 billion and up, not total industry growth, individual bank accounts. So how the hell did we get here? Let's break it down. According to Forbes, there are now 15 people on Earth worth more than $100 billion. Collectively, they control over $2 trillion in wealth. That's more than the entire GDP of countries like Canada or South Korea. Oxfam reports that billionaire wealth surged by $2 trillion in 2024 alone, 3 times faster than the global economy grew. While inflation squeezed average households, the richest got richer at record speed. And the divide? It's not just growing, it's accelerating. Meanwhile, the basics, food, rent, healthcare, have never been more out of reach. Grocery prices are up by double digits since the pandemic. Housing costs are shoving working families out of cities. And in many parts of the US, full-time workers are still relying on food banks to get through the week. We're told to budget better, to just work harder. But the truth is, wages haven't kept up with the cost of living in decades. And every time the economy booms, the top 1% walk away with almost all the gains. Let's talk about why. Because this isn't just bad luck. This is policy. This is structure. This is design. Start with taxes. You probably pay more of your income in taxes than Jeff Bezos. That's not a joke. That's the reality of the US tax system. According to ProPublica's secret IRS files, many billionaires legally avoid paying income taxes for years at a time. They don't need to. Why? Because they don't live off paychecks. They live off assets, stocks, real estate, and private equity holdings that gain value but don't get taxed until sold. So instead of selling shares and paying capital gains tax, billionaires borrow against their wealth. They use a loophole called buy, borrow, die. They buy assets. They borrow against them at low interest. Then they die and pass the wealth on tax-free. Meanwhile, the average worker pays payroll tax, sales tax, and income tax just to stay afloat. Fair? Not even close. Next, let's talk power. Billionaires don't just make money. They shape policy through lobbying, campaign donations, and think tanks. The ultra-rich have rigged the system to protect their interests. Whether it's blocking wealth taxes, gutting labor protections, or avoiding regulation, they play chess, while the rest of us are stuck on a rigged board. And it's not just in the US. This is a global pattern. According to the World Inequality Report, the top 10% of earners take home over 50% of global income. The bottom 50%, less than 10%. In real terms, billionaires can launch themselves into space while half the planet can't afford to fix a broken tooth. So what does this mean for the rest of us? It means anger, frustration, and unrest. Strikes are up. In 2024, workers at Amazon, Starbucks, and UPS organized some of the largest labor actions in decades. They're not asking for luxury. They're asking for livable wages and basic protections. Meanwhile, billionaire CEOs were cashing out stock options worth tens or even hundreds of millions, all while cutting staff, raising prices, and blaming inflation. Here's the kicker. Inflation hasn't hurt everyone. It's been good for billionaires. Assets like real estate, stocks, and commodities surge when prices rise. So while you're paying $8 for cereal, the investor class is quietly banking more profit. It's called the Cantillon effect, named after economist Richard Cantillon. The idea is that money printed or pumped into the economy first reaches the wealthy, who use it to buy up assets before prices rise. By the time it reaches everyone else, inflation has already eaten up any gains. Translation: even stimulus policies meant to help the poor often end up enriching the rich. So what can we do about it? Let's start with naming the problem. Extreme wealth concentration isn't just unfair, it's destabilizing. It corrodes democracy, it traps innovation, and it leaves billions fighting over scraps while a tiny elite hoards power and influence. Oxfam lists 5 major ways billionaires damage the economy. 1. They distort democracy with lobbying and influence. 2. They avoid taxes, starving public services. 3. They underpay workers, keeping wages low. 4. They monopolize markets, choking out competition. 5. And they direct capital toward wealth extraction, not wealth creation. None of that is value creation. It's value extraction. It's turning the economy into a funnel, not a fountain. And look, this isn't about envy. It's about ethics. No one needs $100 billion. That's not ambition. That's a black hole. And if you think billionaires are job creators, ask yourself this: how many jobs jobs could be created if we taxed extreme wealth and invested in healthcare, infrastructure, education, or clean energy. We're not broke, we're misallocated. Let's look at the numbers. Just a 1% annual wealth tax on billionaires could generate hundreds of billions per year, enough to fund universal pre-K, affordable housing, or clean water systems across the U.S. And it wouldn't touch their lifestyle. It would just slow the rocket ride of runaway inequality. But every time this idea comes up, billionaires panic. They threaten to move, to pull investment, to go galt and disappear. But let's be real. Wealth taxes already exist in other countries, and rich people still live there. Because guess what? Billionaires don't move to avoid taxes. They move to avoid accountability. So here we are in 2025. Working people are tapped out. Rent is too high. Groceries are a luxury. And the billionaires, they're on their third yacht, racing toward $1 trillion. And that brings us to a simple, uncomfortable truth. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed. For them, not for you. Not for the teacher, the nurse, the delivery driver, the barista. Not for the parents working 2 jobs and still skipping meals so their kids can eat. So what now? We need bold, systemic action. Real tax reform, wealth caps, higher minimum wages, worker representation on corporate boards, public ownership of essential services, transparent political funding, and policies that prioritize well-being over stock prices. We also need to change the culture. Billionaires aren't gods. They're people, flawed, fallible, and frequently greedy. Worshipping them only makes things worse. Instead of asking, how did they get so rich? We need to ask, why is everyone else so poor? Because if this continues, if the middle class keeps shrinking, if the poor get poorer while the rich hoard more, we're headed for crisis. Economic inequality isn't just an economic issue. It's a moral one. It's a political one. It's a human one. So the next time you're at the store wondering how bananas got so expensive or why your paycheck barely covers rent, remember, it's not your fault, and you're not alone. The billionaires didn't build the world. Workers did. People did. You did. It's time to take it back.